A
Caribbean with a rich history of cultural diversity and full multipurpose resources and territories is now in dispute. Many of their problems are double-edged weapons, and among their actors are several who bet on the dependence and looting of the most. There are some fertile grounds, generators of agreements and roadmaps referred here, and that are propitious to the approach of this reality. On the other one, less institutional, more autonomous of governments, and offensive of the popular sectors, and towards its third decade of existence. The Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean, Emancipation versus Recolonization. That's our topic for today. We'll be looking for more information, we'll have guests, and as always, we have your critical thinking. Let's begin. From Thursday, August 15th until Monday, 19th, the 8th Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean was held in Port Spain in Trinidad and Tobago. It's known as APC. The meeting, which gathered 13 nations, coincided with the 25th anniversary of this mechanism and space created in 1994 as an initiative of progress sectors and union organization. That is why the meeting was held in this country, for the collective articulation and struggle against capitalism and its deep global crisis, and to favor the process of integration and sovereignty in the region. Key themes of this edition were biodiversity, colonialism, independence, free movement, climate change, food sovereignty, wave of nationalism exacerbated by signs of racism and xenophobia in the region, manipulation of justice to discredit leftist leaders. Let's hear Camille Chambers, a Haitian intellectual delegated to the meeting. The Caribbean is the region of revolutions, the region where the people have been able to build autonomous national projects that challenge the industry of capitalism. We have responsibility as a sovereign people to cut and give unique experience in the efforts to destroy capitalism and create a socialist society of justice and equality. Let's go to other web pages. It says there is solidarity with just causes. As we can see, that the delegates of this 8th edition of the APC ratified the solidarity with the Bolivarian project of Venezuela, of his president and their people. They reject the U.S. blockade of Cuba, declared themselves in favor of the independence of Puerto Rico, freedom of Lula da Silva, and the reparations for Haiti. Important points of this we see on the bottom of this article. They agreed to multiply the proclamation of the American Latin America as Caribbean as a zone of peace, and they all agreed of being a network in a fraternal attempt against the isolation. The next edition of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean will take place in Haiti in 2021. Let's go to a website. It's called Venezuela State TV. This is of August 18. Some hours before of the final declaration, it read, Assembly of the Peoples of Caribbean joins the campaign No More Trump. This space was opportune to denounce the formalization and widening of the economic blockade, financial and trade from the United States to Venezuela. The Assembly called the action as aggressive, violent, and intrusive and criminal. And additional to this, we see a tweet of the Chancellor Jorge Ariasa that says, from Trinidad and Tobago, with the 8th Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean, he denounces the criminal blockade and illegal imposed by the government of the United States against the people of Venezuela, and adds himself to the world campaign, No More Trump, no more. Let's go home. Let's go to our own website. This is from Telesur. In Brazil, the week on climate change in the midst of the controversy for deforestation of the Amazon begins. This is a news from 19 of August. It says the week of climate of Latin America and the Caribbean begins this Monday in Salvador de Bahia, Brazil, in a diverse context due to the anti-environmental policies of the Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. This event will take place until the 23rd of August. It is expected to attract more than 3,000 people from 33 countries. The celebration also comes at a time of great controversy over the increase of deforestation in the part of Brazil, Amazon, that caused Germany and Norway to announce the freezing of their aid intended for the preservation of the jungle due to the policies of Jair Bolsonaro. Okay, we have some images of the climate change. There was some conflict because there was a cancellation of this event on behalf of the Minister of Environment, and at the end he decided to participate. We've got information of Brazil that deforestation has finished a huge superficie. Let's go to, from now, Hernán Vargas will join us from Puerto España, where this assembly was held. How are you? Was there a concrete plan of action that's circling the priorities defined in the final declaration? Well, this is Hernán Vargas, and we're taking stock of the movement of settlers, and for Telesur, it's important to say at least three things that are fundamental. One is that the Assembly of the peoples of the Caribbean that emerged in the midst of the struggle against neoliberalism, and that also had a fundamental role in stopping the first attempt of coup d'etat in 1994, still has the values of struggle with which it began. Fundamentally, it is marked by the difficulties of the moment, but with a clear mystique of challenges, of struggles ahead. But just like Martinique and Guadeloupe are still European colonies, formally, the rest of the countries have had independence struggles, but we still have a type of colonialism, and neoliberalism is still the main policy. And every time more, they're trying to take away the natural resources of the region, but also with a progressive privatization of life in all aspects, not only health, energy, transport, but also with very high prices of life. And what they do is that they guarantee that the Caribbean is just migrant and slave workers that just move depending on the need of the capitalism. The second thing that we would like to say is that it has been an assembly where the main mistake have been to have a new order. 13 members of the Caribbean have discussed on how to go back on the majority's priorities, and fundamentally with the young people, to reconstruct not only a diagnosis of what's happening in the continent, but to do a process of mobilization. As a last point, we can say that we want a socialist federation, and we will defend Cuba. We support the No More Trump as a way of supporting Venezuela, and we want the reparations for Haiti and the need to move forward with a free Puerto Rico and the need for all of the countries of the Caribbean to join together. So this assembly has an agenda, and what they try to do is have an articulation of process to come together. And we will find an identity to struggle. We have a tradition of having a common horizon, and we will have our first objective will be Venezuela. And what we want to do is to keep on aligning forces. And in this sense, we will keep on speaking through the main platforms of the world, from the World's March of Women, from all of these Earth summits that they will all aim towards democracy, and there's a summit that will be held in Cuba. And then in Santa Cruz in 2020. So it's a complete balance of a space that was fundamentally marked by the difficulties of the moment, but with a clear mystique of the challenges and struggles ahead. From here, we send greetings to the audience of Telesur, from the Popular Movement, and Venezuela and the continent.
Un abrazo de vuelta, Hernán. Gracias.
Thank you, Hernán,
por hacerte eco de todo lo que ocurrió en ese espacio
for giving us a summary of everything that happened. That was very much marked by the difficulties and challenges of the moment. So we ask ourselves, what marks all of these challenges? And also, we want to ask, how has the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean is articulated with other space of integration? This is what we will be seeing with our analysts right after our pause. We'll be right back. Everything that's happening to the environment, how the soils are being deteriorated with the use of the chemicals. So once again, with all of this loss that we already know, I think it's important to demand to have public policies to defend our rights and not just follow the capitalism with their patterns of consumption. This is the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean. The Great Caribbean, with all of the resources and potential, with the way of being of their people, all of these countries that are a key to America, and within there are countries that are under siege, like Nicaragua and Cuba. Let's go to the map. Grand Caribbean, entrance to America, antagonism and energy reserves. It is a wide surface that is made of the islands and the lands. It takes from the south to the north all of the northern coast of the U.S., the eastern part of Central America. This is the Gulf of Mexico and southern border of the U.S. It is 2,700,000 square kilometers, and it almost has 44 million. It is a piece of European and American expansion. That's why they're multi-ethnic. It was an open place to a small. The European colonization was followed by the U.S. Now we have a multi-ethnic, polycultural, and multilingual region. There is also a region with many small islands that are still not yet independent. The Caribbean is also crossed with Africa. The Great Caribbean has many diverse actors, island and countries of the mainland, and Anglophone Caribbean and other Latin ideological enemies like the U.S. and Venezuela. So this is why they have Cuba and the Antilles that are an example. Their position, geographical, is strategic. It's a key entry to Latin America. It's a communication route between north and south. Additionally, the Caribbean Sea is a crossroads between four cardinal points. It has important gas and oil reserves in Venezuela and the Gulf of Mexico. Apart from that, in this area, there's a dispute between U.S. and China. China bets on investments and developments on projects. They have added many countries to their Silk Route, and the United States, on the contrary, takes over forcefully and historically has put transnational companies. There's also the strategic Panama Canal. It's not easy to synthesize in a small piece everything that this region has. This is an area that has as an emblematic and exemplary facts the great revolutionary victories of Haiti and Cuba in 1804 and 1959. Historically, however, the people of the Caribbean have had to face the fragmentation imposed by the imperial powers in successive colonization processes. The present is full of challenges arising from the colonial past and the consequences of the prevailing predatory capitalism as a prevailing system. Among the challenges of the region is a starting point to establish a national project opposed to the logic of domination of the dominant system. This would allow the peoples that stricken by colonialism and imperialism to advance in building fairer societies, improve their capacities to deal with natural disasters that reoccur every year in several of this range of Caribbean countries, strengthen the solidarity relationship process, such as CARICOM and Petrocaribe, also overcome the migratory flows that have occurred massively recent months from Central America to the U.S. and that have been instrumentalized by the government of Donald Trump to maintain a certain amount of votes in 2020 elections and to militarize key border areas. Another challenge to overcome is that of security, ending illicit smuggling and disrupting mafias that move along key routes. There is also the definition of a clear strategy to deal with climate change and the business of genetically modified organisms, agrotoxics, and industrialization of agriculture. This means redefining consumption patterns and the relationship with nature, rescuing native hands in the hands of transnationals. Among the challenges is also increasing the intra-regional commerce to more than 15% and to obtain foreign investments. Well, let's continue with the analysis. We are now with Marilyn Serna, who's part of the peoples of Colombia. Thank you for answering our call. which is always a topic that we have in critical moves. So we would like to know, what is your perspective of everything we've said? Well, good morning. Very much for the opportunity. I would like to greet everybody back there. Well, we from the Congress of the Peoples, we are declared a social movement that doesn't only work in Colombia, but we have also chapters in Latin America and Europe. This is an anti-imperialist process, anti-capitalism, anti-patriarchal, and all of the policies of blockade and isolation and oppression on behalf of one country over another. This is what is important for us. It's important that we also work strongly in solidarity and support and accompanying of the countries and of the movements. We have a very critical view with all of the situation that's going on with Venezuela and this intervention of the U.S., which has no consideration with the people of the country. So we're profoundly unhappy with the role of Colombia in the situation. We reject the policies of President Duque that support an invasion of Venezuela, and he also supports the blockade on Cuba and all of the situation that's going on in these countries against the political opposition and these expressions of democracy that are constantly being stigmatized and hit. As we said, María Elena, at the beginning, among the Caribbean actors, there are some who bet on the dependency because they're interested in keeping this process of colonization. And you were calling out Colombia, and I would like you to specify this role that seems that is in favor of the Balkanization of Latin America and the Caribbean, in favor of the worldwide powers. Well, unfortunately, sadly, although all of the struggles, even the armed struggle that has been going on for decades in Colombia. So we expected a different process. It's also important to say we defend the sovereignty of the peoples. We have not been able to overcome this capitalist struggle. And in Colombia's case, we can say the neoliberal policies of the U.S. And this is a reality that we have fought against. That's why we've come together with other countries and to mobilize with them. But we have not been able to say that we've been able to overcome this. Right now, there is still opposition in Colombia, but there's also in favor of ending a revolutionary exercise that is totally in our liberty, that in this case our country is doing. So we think that it's a very sad thing for a country to do. So we think that what they want is a capitalism intervention, but we cannot allow this to happen. So it's very sad for us. We have rejected all of this because we are with the sovereignty of the countries, and that what's going on with Venezuela, this political situation, and he should add on to all of these countries.
Las situaciones que está viviendo. Es un país con toda la capacidad para resolver sus situaciones. Pero ha sido muy difícil porque
it's been very hard, however, because there's an oligarchy that has traditionally been submitted to the interest of the U.S., the interest over oil and over our natural resources, over this domination on the people. But, well, there's also the counterpart. There's an array of countries that do bet on the independency and sovereignty to put an end of this colonization process. And that have been able to give some containment. How do you see it from the Congress of the Peoples? Yes, in fact, it's true. We celebrate and we are part of all of these efforts for a project of emancipation, a project that will really put at the center of the debates the feeling of all of the peoples. And even far beyond that, when we have these presidents who are avongside with their people, we celebrate the assistance of the ALBA, of the Clovia Campesina, the Foro Sao Paulo, and what happened in Trinidad and Tobago, and what will happen in Havana in November. And once again, we will meet to keep on strengthening these ties of friendship, and to further read everything that's going on in our countries, because it's true that in some countries the situations are much more complex than in others. However, the interventions are going on in all of the countries, and so that's why they are willing to support these initiatives. Since 1970, the customs cooperation has been developing in the Greater Caribbean. On November 7th, 1989, the Caribbean Council for the Implementation of the Customs Laws was established and is gradually developing from 22 to the 24th of May. They met in Havana, Cuba, in its annual conference, with the participation of delegations of some 30 countries. And in that scenario, something critical went on, and we were analyzing. Let's share with you some information. The attendees signed the Charter of Founding Agreement of the Caribbean Customs Organization with the vision of making it operational by early 2020. The objective is that the Nation-One organization creates legal mechanisms that allow to promote greater collaboration between the Caribbean customs, as well as to unite efforts in border security, trade, and relationships with partners within and out of the region. Cuba, for the first time, served as the host country for a meeting of the Caribbean Council, although it maintains links with the Caribbean customs for more than 4 decades. It always attended as a guest because the clauses state that the unanimous vote is required for a full membership, but the United States always opposed. Now, its good practices are now recognized, and the door is open to deal with the tightening of the blockade. Well, among the problems we identified, we have that Hernán Vargas, he says that there has been a space where in this 8th meeting that has been very much marked with the problems of the region. So that's why we began with his opinion. But there's also the option to make plans to go around all of these problems. There are some topics that are common
es el tema de la movilización.
And it's the topic of human mobilization. I think that the countries and the social movements insist on the unity and solidarity and the need to strengthen human mobility that is much more articulated. We have developed a process that is much more articulated. And the other one is
Bueno, se nos interrumpe la
apparently
comunicación
we've
vía
got a
telefónica
cut in
con
the
Marilena
in the
Serna, integrante del
communication.
Congreso de los Pueblos. Conectaba con nosotros desde Colombia.
She was calling from Colombia. Apparently, due to time, we cannot reconnect. But now we have central ideas. We suggest this document that's called Reordering of Strategic of the Caribbean. It's on the CELAC webpage. The author is Celine, the lady we just spoke to, and at the end, it says, and then says, the Caribbean is in dispute for more than 5 centuries, and this is still valid for the next century. Historically, the region has been considered the opening door to the region. The strategies in terms of security and fight against drugs pretend to counteract the investment of China. But the influence of the cooperation with Venezuela is also important. The Caribbean will see the dispute between U.S. and China, because through there the Silk Route will also pass. With this last paragraph that locates the whole thing, the end paragraph is about Venezuela. And with this, we will be right back after our pause. The Assembly of the Peoples of the Caribbean, Emancipation or Recolonization. As we said before, in this vast region, the global geopolitical dispute finds its expression. It is easy to see the contrast between governments that defend a united and sovereign Caribbean versus the interest of disarticulating Caribbean. The historical strategy of the United States in Caribbean has been of bilateralism. The White House negotiates with each Caribbean country individually in order to exert better pressure and impose its Pan-American order. The summits of the Americas are a place where its policies are crystallized. There are emphasis on the economic openness and foreign investment, as well as the reinforcement of the so-called continental security. On this last point, the fight against drugs has been an excuse to interfere in the region. For this, it has signed agreements with military cooperation with Mexico, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Honduras. The Caribbean is also the scenario of the global struggle for hegemony between United States and China. The geopolitical importance of this region lies in its enormous natural wealth and in the strategic place for the control of trade routes. In 2017, the White House announced funds for the energy integration. With regards to the investment, the Corporation for Private Investments Abroad stated that during this year, they would have more status of Bahamas, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Dominican Republic. Regarding the Chinese influence, it is clear how it has increased in recent years. 5 Caribbean countries have joined to the Silk Route initiative, the Asian Giant Business Project. They are Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and Dominican Republic. In this framework, the dispute between the United States and China in the Caribbean region, the influence of Venezuela is key. The relations of cooperation between the Bolivarian Revolution and many Caribbean institutions have been instrumental to make these countries criticize the blockade and the policies of harassment of the United States. So this is a Caribbean in dispute, as well as other key regions, to find geopolitical regions. While United States bets on negotiating individually with the countries, and they also support them through NGOs. And China, on the other hand, invests in electricity and other big projects in the region. Among the challenges is to find a comprehensive plan to confront the difficulties, and especially that affects the array of the Caribbean countries. It is possible. There is a new Caribbean is possible, but they need an anti-imperialistic plan to safeguard all of this cultural history that survives, although of the urbanization that is not something of the past, but on the contrary is very well alive. And that is why we said recolonization versus emancipation. This is the end of our critical moves. Let's keep on seeing what's going on. We will keep on analyzing this topic. And thank you very much for being with us.